So I just got done watching a film called Maki's 13 Steps, starring one of my favorite female martial artists, actually one of my favorite martial arts artists, period. Etsuko Shihomi. She was a huge martial arts star back in the 1970s and I think early 80s when that genre was at its strongest worldwide. I've seen many of her films with my favorites being Street Fighter 3 and Dragon Princess. This film, Maki's 13 Steps, is a pretty good film. One I've tried to find on DVD here in the United States, but couldn't. I was able to order a DVD from over, basically from another, basically from for another country. Um, but I do know you can find a movie. I think some places on YouTube and streaming. But I actually want to own it. Mackie's 13 Steps is about a young woman named Mackie who is the leader of a all-female gang. From what I can tell, the gang is made up more about friendship and a bond between the women rather than them trying to commit crimes or any kind of criminal behavior or sell drugs or anything like that. The film opens with Mackie saving one of the girls from being run over by a train. Mackie is a type of big sister who saves the other women from prostitution and also teaches them martial arts and serves as their sort of a sensei, big sister, as well as a leader. At some point, the girls have a run in with a young woman who is the daughter of a wealthy businessman. The situation does not go well for the young girl who's the daughter of the wealthy businessman, um, who runs back to her father, who enlists the help of a yakuza thug. Okay, the fighting by Etsuko Shihomi is excellent as always, and in fact, you can tell she is not some actor pretending, but rather someone who actually is a good fighter. I would say the storyline to the movie is engrossing, and I generally like the parts of the film yeah, I like the parts where she was in prison. Maki seems like a very interesting character, and I also like the female prison boss who, was very cruel and compelling, even though only had a few speaking roles. The film moves along pretty quickly, and there are no parts that drag. I love the large battle at the end. It's pretty well choreographed and frantic at the same time. It was nice seeing so many women in the film. Um, Watching Etsuko, her character Maki, interact with her friends. Sony Chiba is also in the film, playing her older brother, and has a good but very short fighting scene with her. Now, there are a few things I didn't care for or thought that could have been better. I liked her relationship with the other girls and wish they could have explored it a bit more. As it seems, she is something like a big sister and teacher and protector to them. I hated some of the camera angles during the fight scenes that switched to a first person perspective. You couldn't really see what was going on in those parts. I didn't care for that. You know, the female prison boss was actually interesting, but the fight between the two of them was a bit of a letdown. It was over real quickly. You know, I felt like they could have did a little bit better with that fight, even if she wasn't a good martial artist or something. The actor who played her, I'm not familiar with. But even if she just used brute strength, she was a big woman. Uh, if she didn't know really any good martial arts, they could have had her use brute strength, and she could have thrown Mackie around or slammed her around or something. She does escape from prison, but that and the other guards, but that what about the other guards? Did the female prisoners she released from their cells take them out? I don't recall this ever being shown or really explained. You know, they did escape. She did let them out of the cells and they escaped, but unless I missed something, I don't. They had to be. I only saw her beat up maybe two guards, one male and one female guard. I'm assuming if there was a female prison, you had to have more than two guards. Okay. Another thing I didn't really care for that really wasn't good to me. At the end of the film, she finds her friends being whored out and drugged up, and a bunch of guys having sex with them. They're being used as prostitutes. She does not beat the guys up like I expected. Instead, a male character who was an enemy and now sides with her says to, let him handle it. I generally had no idea at the end of the film if the other girls were saved or not. That seemed like a simple thing to let her do. Let her beat those dudes up. Instead of beating the guys up, she slaps her female friends around, which all of them are pretty much drugged up at the time. So since they're hooked up, they got them drugged up. They're not in their right minds. They're not gonna really think. You know, but they, like I said, they should have let she should have beat the mess out of those guys and saved her female friends. That seemed to make the most sense to me, but that's not what happened. She ran off to go find like the main yakuza boss thug of the movie. you know um the guy, like the main villain of the movie, he was okay, I guess, but he was kind of like a really generic yaku bad guy. He wasn't anybody. He didn't know how to fight. He was a punk. He actually was funny because she really was chasing him around. He was running around like a little punk. But yeah, I didn't care too much. I didn't. He wasn't really. He wasn't a bad villain, but he wasn't that all that interesting. He was kind of generic, and like I said, I don't know, they could have did something better with him. And the main thing, like I said, that bothered me is she didn't save her friends. She spent all this time in the movie caring about them. She wanted to get out of prison to go save them, but the guy, oh, don't worry about it, I got this, huh? Nah, that didn't make any sense to me. That was like the worst part of the picture. I thought that really made no sense. You're gonna lead us to this other guy who actually was fighting earlier in the film. These are the main women that you care about, your friends. These you should have saved them. Now, it may seem like a petty complaint, but the main actor may actually be too good in terms of her fighting skills. In some of her other films, I've had to watch them a few times to get a good idea of what she is doing, and she moves very quickly. Um, she's an excellent fighter, but she moves very fast. Something I kind of like to see the moves. I kind of prefer the moves to be done a little bit slower. Like some of her movies, I have to like watch a few times to see what the heck she's doing. Um, Also, I don't get why in the heck they didn't do a sequel to this film. As I personally, this character seems interesting enough where they could have developed her further down the road, furthermore. This is a character that's very interesting. They could have took this character different places and shown you more about her. They definitely should have done one more sequel to this picture. Um, Also, there's a bit of nudity in the film as well. Yeah, I can deal with the nudity, but there's a lot of nudity in here. You see a lot of women, naked women. I think there's actually one scene with a naked man in there. So you see a lot of breasts, a lot of behinds in here. It's not the worst movie in terms of nudity, but there is a lot of nudity in there. So some squeamish people may not like that. There's a good amount of violence in the film as well. Um, of course, martial arts movies, there's gonna be some fighting into it. That's a lot. But in all these movies where Etsuko Shihomi is in, also with Sony Chiba, usually they show somebody, at least one or two persons get something, eye knocked out, a nose ripped off or something, or ear. I think one woman actually gets her ear cut off. So there's a little violence there too. You know, I think she hits some guy. She puts one person's eyes out with her fingers. So that's some violence there in these type of movies. And in her movies, these movies that she did with Sony Chiba, there was always a lot of violence in there. So you don't like violence films, or you don't like something with a lot of nudity or dealing with things of prostitution or abuse, and don't watch it. Um, One thing I didn't care for, the soundtrack was weak. It sounded like it was remixed from one of her other films. Um, I love the soundtrack of Dragon Princess and Sister Street Fighter 3, which had awesome soundtracks. You know, this movie, it seemed like they really didn't really try. They didn't make a big effort to do anything in terms of the soundtrack. It was weak, very very weak. For martial arts films, I usually love a real good, strong soundtrack. One of the things I like I said, most of her movies have very good soundtracks. Also, one aspect that might bother people is the amount of abuse the women actually commit against each other. You know, a lot of these martial arts films, you see a guy beating on a women or trying to rape them or assault them. There was a lot of that here. The women do get abused by a lot of male characters in terms of basically raped. But it's interesting that a lot of the violence committed against the women is actually against by other women. Okay, not in the prison scene, in the prison parts, you do have some of that, women attacking each other in prison. But even out of prison, basically, Maki and the daughter of the Yakuza thug basically spend the whole movie harassing each other because neither one of them can just apologize or just let the whole situation. The little issue that they had at the beginning of the movie was not a big issue, but it kind of ballooned into something that it really didn't need to be, and they basically spend the whole movie abusing each other. So it is a lot of female on female abuse, which actually was kind of interesting though. To be honest with you, I think that's something movies could explore a little bit more. That's something that could be explored a little bit more, not just in martial arts films, but in movies in general. Something I might actually check out a documentary and watch about because that's an interesting topic. But yeah, that was kind of interesting. So let me see. Overall, I think it's a pretty good picture. It's not something for the modern day squeamish crowd, but for a martial arts fan, I think the average person would like it. Would say the whole part with her being in prison was actually an interesting part. That was actually the best part of the movie. I kind of wish they had spent a little bit more time on that. Also, I didn't like that the women in prison that she let out the cells. It would have been kind of nice. I thought maybe if she had and saved some of them as well. They escaped with her, or she had helped them escape. That would be kind of nice. That would be kind of interesting. And again, like I said, I don't know. Maybe I need to watch the picture again. I don't know what happened to her friends. Um, at the end of the movie, she's basically walking off by herself, and there's some sad music playing. I assume she didn't save her friends, but I don't know. I was confused by that. I was very confused. Did she save them or didn't she save them? What happened to them? Uh, I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, I think it's not her best film, but it's not her worst either. It's a good movie. I enjoy her movies because she actually seemed like she took some time. What I understand is she's actually studied martial arts for like a year and a half before she actually took the role. She learned like stunt work, so she actually you see that in her films that she actually knows what she's doing. She's not just some actor that somebody's taking and showing a move or two, and they're doing a move or two, and they don't look like they know what they're doing. She actually was proficient in what she does, and she actually has some star power and screen appeal. It's a good movie. I enjoyed it. If you like old school 70 martial arts films, this is one you'll enjoy as well.